We're now going to move on to a masterclass on the role of EVs in sustainability. Now, everybody is talking about electric vehicles, infrastructures being set up, and those even ride aggregators are switching to EVs, whether it's more fashionable or it's really impacting their bottom lines. Whatever be the reason, EVs are the way to go for mobility. And for this masterclass, please welcome Mr. Sandeep Bangia, Head EV, HA, and ESCO Business Tata Power Company Limited. Mr. Bangia combines his understanding of emerging technologies and digital platforms, experience in telecom and mobility space, and his passion towards clean mobility to drive innovation in the EV charging ecosystem. He has spent a large part of his career in the telecom sector for marquee names like Tata Teleservices, Reliance, and Idea Cellular, working across the spectrum with product management, business operations, business strategy, value-added services, digital platforms, and more. He has dabbled with entrepreneurship and startup ideas in the EV and consumer IoT domain for a while before joining Tata Power, leading these very verticals. So please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Bangia. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Bangia.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you. Thank you for having me on board. I'm sorry about my, croaky voice. I'm in the middle of the COVID recovery. Possibly it is the 4th day today. So if you find me coughing, please pardon me for that. I was hearing the previous conversation, and I was recalling an article that I wrote almost to the year in February last year. Sustainability as a marketing tool. So I was able to very beautifully connect because I was seeing yesterday's agenda, largely branding and marketing. Earlier today, sustainability as a marketing tool in that sense. And then I was just wondering, where does EVs fit in, and how do we connect? So I think just a few things, and you'll possibly get an answer as we go along in the first few slides. So I'll just straight away get into these slides. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I can go on talking about electric vehicles for the rest of the day, but I'll just pick up some nuances to just connect the thought about EVs and the related ecosystem, because EVs by themselves are a small part of the entire ecosystem. EVs, then there is charging, then there is batteries, then there is the distribution companies. So I'm just trying to connect. I'll just try and see if I can connect all these dots and then link it to the sustainable agenda that is going to be talked about here. So yes, right here, I think this is not something which is not known. Countries have made commitments to phase out coal. India has done it for 2070, and the other countries, we are seeing the commitments. My company, Tata Power, is committed to phase out coal generating plants by 2050 and even earlier. We are committed to not expanding the capacities of coal plants going forward now. So everything that we're going to do is renewable, and up to 2050, we're going to be completely out of coal. Now that's a very, very big statement to make, especially when as a country, we are making a statement of 2070. But having said that, I'll just continue this agenda. Now, this is not to scare everybody, but yes, marketeers and brand marketeers have a very clear role to play here on the awareness piece. If so you're all familiar with I would say the significance of 1.5 degrees, which is the commitment that was made at the Paris Agreement. But unfortunately, if we go at the current rate at which we are going, we will have up to 4 degrees of temperature increase as we go along. And then what you will see is absolutely drastic changes in the climate situation. And we have all seen what it can do. I'm not going to scare the discussion even further. We are all familiar with this. This is not something about the future. This is about the now. What we need to do now. And just to take this discussion and connect it to the EVs in the context of India, the Paris Agreement goals of India, which we have committed, are not going to be met if India as a country does not move into electric mobility in a big way. It is not just making a beginning, but we have to go this direction in a big way to be able to meet the Paris Agreement goals. So here is the commitment that India has been making. Fossil fuel generation capacity to 500 gigawatts, 50% of energy requirements, reduce the carbon emissions by the amount, intensity of carbon by 45%, and to become net zero by 2070. Now, this is as a country. The previous 4 points is about by 2030. So it is not that we have to do some things in the future. We have to do things now. Just again, so there is a goal that was set. There are about 17 goals. So if we were to do, we move very strongly on the electric mobility. The goals that I'm mentioning here towards the bottom, goal number 3, goal number 7, goal number 9, 11, 13, and 17. It just happened to be, sequential by a total of 2. But these are the goals that will get met if we move very strongly to electric mobility. I'll leave you to read all of it. To give you one simple small example, in Delhi, which is the most polluted city in the country, and amongst the top most polluted city in the world, amongst the maybe top 3 or 4. So Delhi has that distinction, not a very happy thing. Delhi contributes almost 41% of its pollution comes through road carbon emissions. So think of it. If that 41% gets converted to electric, I think we are sorted. So in India is, I'll just come to further. In India, 87% of the transmissions, the emissions come from road, whereas globally this number is about 75%. But yeah, this is all a number which we are all familiar with. It's a matter of time and not, whether we're going to be moving into electric mobility. So this is what, I was reminded of the article, and I just created the slide maybe about an hour back. Exactly last year, when we were all in the thick of COVID, about the wave 2 was just about to hit us in that sense, is when I had written this. To my mind, I think these are the 3 things that really convey the sustainability agenda of any corporate or of any brand. Is that should be. I always say this: sustainability is not a substitute. It's not a campaign. It's an additive. Everything that you're doing, you have to do better and add on the sustainable agenda to the whole thing. It's not a campaign, as I mentioned. It is a way of life. I mean, this is a very cliche thing, but the fact is, it's a way of life. It is something that has to be drawn into the culture, into the DNA of the organization. Because it's not something that, we have been hearing things like performance marketing campaigns, digital campaigns, sharp campaigning. There's none of those. This is a complete sustainable activity that any organization needs to be doing. And finally, engaging your customer honestly. I was hearing this word, which is one of my favorite words in the context of sustainability, greenwashing. I think there's a lot of brands out there who catch the attention by talking about the sustainable agenda. We all as a customer can make out where does the intentions lie. And engaging the customer sustainably, engaging the customer honestly is what essentially the agenda should be. Now, let me just link it to the electric vehicle context. I think globally there is a group called EV100. They are committed to converting all their fleets, all their vehicles, all their transport emissions into electric, so that the there is a zero tailpipe emissions that come through them. So this is a very strong group. I would urge, if you're not a member of that group, be a part of that and commit yourself to this. So I'll come to now electric mobility. This is this part, as I can go on and on forever, but I'll try and restrict myself to very specific things that are related to the EV electric mobility and the charging per se, before moving on to the other dimensions of the electric mobility. So why are we doing this? Why are we doing electric mobility? We all do electric mobility for four clear reasons. India is home to 7 out of the 10 most polluted cities in the world. It's not a very flattering thing to be familiar with. We have very high dependence on foreign exchange when it comes to fossil fuels. The geopolitical dependency on few countries is very, very high when it comes to fossil fuels. It's time that we bust all of that. And finally, I think, EVs are better vehicles. All of these things are nice, good for the heart, good for the mind reasons. But at the end of the day, I will not buy or I will not consider anything if it is not good, if it is not suiting my pocket, if it is not just for a label. So I think EV vehicles are much better vehicles. They are much better to drive at. They are automatic, very, very high torque. They are silent, no vibrations, and all of that. I will not go on and on, but this is something that is a fact. Second part, I think the three key stakeholders in the electric vehicle race, or I wouldn't say race, as the stakeholders, are having tailwinds towards them. So number one is the automakers. All the automakers of consequence have committed to convert their drivetrains from fossil fuel to electric by 2025/2026 and thereon. So a lot of people worldwide, and maybe even in India, and I leave this question to you yourself. A lot of people very clearly feel that they have already purchased their last petrol and diesel vehicle, and their next vehicle is definitely going to be an electric vehicle. Maybe toward the end of the session, we'll possibly have a show of hands to see whether this is true. But yes, automakers are clearly saying that, boss, we are done with fossil fuel vehicles, and we are going to be very clearly making a move to electric mobility. Governments, including India, incentivizing it very sharply. There have been a lot of critics who say that, why is government incentivizing? If it is good, it is good in any case. But let me say this, for 100 years or plus, governments have been incentivizing petrol and diesel, subsidizing petrol and diesel. So I think governments have a role to play. In this case, in the context of India, I have a slide there. Government is extraordinarily supportive of the electric mobility agenda, and you know the reason: Paris Agreement, the right things to do, and stuff like that. Finally, the customer. I think the very fact that this is a topic of discussion in a brand and marketing forum itself suggests that customers have a very strong narrative around electric vehicles. Not a single day passes when there is at least 200, 300 column centimeters of articles on electric mobility globally as well as in India, whether it is good, not good, all that discussion. So it's a corridor conversation. It's a living room conversation. It's a conversation that has penetrated our lives. And I think it's only a matter of time when you'll start seeing those vehicles on the road. So the tailwinds in these three very, very strong stakeholders. Some of these brands are committing to, can you imagine, I mean, few years down the line, you wouldn't have been able to imagine a BMW committing to the entire drivetrain of petrol, diesel moving into electric. It was possibly unimaginable, because it's a bread and butter for them and for everybody else. But here they are. This is the agenda that people have committed to, and they are proceeding in that agenda. So now, what does it take? I think while a lot of it is said from I'm coming from the charging perspective, there is a very clear, I would say, merit in having a domain expertise. While charger is a charger, there is a domain expertise that sits behind managing that kind of charging expertise. We are very familiar as a company with grid management, with supply side, with demand side, and the works. So, there is a lot of argument or debate that I'm exposed to, and close friends, in friendly arguments tell me that, the grid will collapse if so many cars become electric. So yes, it's a fear which is, I call it as FUDs, fear, uncertainties, doubts, and all of those. But essentially, just wanted to say in this context here, and India is a power surplus country. And if all the cars and scooters overnight become electric, yeah, and it's a very, very strong thing to be saying, overnight, if they become electric, the power load in the country would just require to be increased by 6 to 10%. That's it. And that, by the way, for a company like Tata Power or any distribution company, is the kind of variation that we see in the load during the course of the day. Morning peak loads, afternoon, off peaks, and then evening peak loads. This is a kind of variation that we all see in a day. And if all the vehicles become electric, yes, absolutely no problem. I can chest my thumb and say this. Of course, there will be complexities in terms of if all the vehicles come to charge together. I think there are various ways of doing it. Smart charging, time of the day charging, those kind of things are something which is deployed globally, and we will be the first ones to follow. But having said this, it is never going to be a challenge if you're giving it to the experts. So we are into this business of, I'll just take this opportunity to talk about my company and what we do. We are in this business of charging the entire ecosystem, charging at home. So if you buy an electric car, there is a good chance that 9 out of 10 times people from our team will be going and installing a charger that comes along with your car at your house. And those people are likely to be Tata Power, 9 out of 10 times. Workplace charging, we do it for people's offices, commercial offices, captive chargers for fleets, bus chargers, and those kind of things. So these are the kind of cars that are there and today, which are electric. For people who think that there is not enough and more variety, yes, today the price range of the cars start from a slightly upper spectrum, but it's only a matter of time, and that's true for almost all. We are all brand marketeers, so we know that every new product category starts from the top of the segment, and then before it percolates down. Think of the mobile phone, think of a refrigerator, and you will know what I mean. So it's only a matter of time that, and incidentally, the lowest priced electric car is available at 12 lakhs, which is the Tata Tigor EV. Which is cheaper to operate than their equivalent petrol model. I'll not get into the details. I can get drawn into this. So we have done 1,300 plus chargers all over the country. We are committed to do much, much more. We are committed to take this ecosystem much higher in the interest of sustainable living. Some of the nice pictures that the team put in. We are doing charging for buses. In Mumbai, if you see an electric bus, a bus which has got a green number plate, there are about 300 or plus of them running on the streets of Mumbai. We do the charging for all of those vehicles. It's a very happy situation to be in, makes us feel very happy. And we are doing it in Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Delhi, and even more places. So now I'm just going to just touch upon core components of charging, the hardware, which is the charger itself. There's a lot of advancements happening. Ultra rapid chargers, wireless chargers, which is the induction type, renewable power chargers, integrated chargers. So all of those, these are all topics in itself. But having said this, this is a charging hardware which you actually insert the charger inside your car to be able to actually charge. So this is the hardware piece. Then there is a platform piece, which is something that we have developed in-house. This, to my mind, is a very, very strong differentiator of and this is something which is a very vital link between the car, the charger, and the customer. To the customer, end customer, it looks like an app which the customer can use to, do the charging, complete the charging, and all of these functionalities are there. To my mind, this is the key differentiator, and we have got a world-class platform that we are making, not just for the country, for India, but for the world. This is something that we believe is a very, very strong differentiator for us. And finally, I think the policy headwinds, or rather tailwinds, are very strong. There are a lot of times when the government, the technologies are emerging, and the government is the last one to latch on because the private entrepreneurship takes over, does some work, and then the government latches on. I'm very happy to say here, in this case, the government has been the first one to possibly latch on to a new developing ecosystem and then actively promote and push it. It's only a matter of time that the private entrepreneurship or private enterprise actually picks up and takes this discussion much ahead, the way we are doing it. Right side is what you see as a sample Maharashtra EV policy, one of the very progressive policies amongst a lot of other policies in the country. A lot of states are actually falling over each other to incentivize this growth of electric vehicles. Now, I think, again, the debate comes, there's an electric vehicle, and then the battery, what happens to the battery after the useful life of the battery inside the car? Does it go into the landfill? Does it, actually cause more pollution? So I think I'll just address maybe in one slide plus to talk about the second life of the battery. Now, the good part is, if you see the battery pack, there is a battery pack which is sitting inside the vehicle. It is getting used. All the electric vehicles are offering at least 8 years of warranty on the battery. Okay, so nothing is going wrong for 8 years. And globally, cars which have been there in existence, Nissan Leaf, Renault Zoe, nothing has gone wrong with the electric vehicle batteries for at least 12 years. These are all absolutely packed batteries in which there are no moving parts. So really, there's nothing much goes wrong with it. But still, if something were to be going wrong, or if it were to become less efficient within the course of its functioning, it does not land into a junkyard the way left side I'm showing. It actually straight away goes into the right side, which is the stationary storage, which is where I think people like us, which is the distribution companies like Tata Power, are very, very happy to lap it up. This battery is one of the most efficient in terms of space, volume, and energy for the energy storage. And we use it for various reasons: behind the meter applications, ahead of the meter applications, off-grid applications. Maybe you'll see it in the next slide. And the extension of this life of this battery is possibly another 2 decades before anything goes wrong with that. And finally, there are processes which are existing today, even today, that almost the entire battery, lithium ion phosphate, all the chemistries are recyclable, reusable, and all the precious elements are extracted out of that to be able to reuse. Now, this is something which is very, very sharply happening. It's not into the realm of the future, it's already happening. And the advancements in batteries as well as recycling technologies are only expected to go up further. Please understand the context. We have got a context of 100 years of development of IC engine vehicles, petrol diesel engine vehicles. We have got only a few years, maybe a decade odd, of development in the electric vehicle ecosystem. So what you're going to be seeing very sharply is advancements in technologies, battery chemistries, drivetrains, recycling technologies, and all of those. It's a necessity. It's a necessity. It's not just a luxury, it's a necessity now. And you're going to see that happen shortly. This is a very interesting setup. A battery inside a car is the first life, where it needs to be performing at its most efficient. Once it is done, let's the performance is about deteriorated to about 80%, it goes into the second life. And second life, as I mentioned, people like us are very happy to lap it up, to augment our power generation, to sort of manage the peaks and troughs. And finally, the third section is the recycling bit, which I just mentioned about here. I'll also just touch upon one thing, which is vehicle to grid, which is very, very closely related to electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging. Not to restrict myself to only EVs and EV charging, I just thought to touch upon these two topics. Vehicle to grid, and this is, I just want to show you one ad. I would encourage you to see this ad of this brand, Ford, which is a very popular truck in the US. It's a pickup truck, very, very popular. It's the most popular pickup truck in the US, which has now got into an electric avatar. It's a very nice TV commercial, which I would encourage people to see just for the sake of it. But just look at it here. They are saying, and this is something that was done when there was a power outage in the country in US about last year sometime. And this was an ad that was timed beautifully around this. They're saying that if you have a Ford 150 Lightning, which is an electric car, and it has a battery, which is a very powerful battery, it can power your house for 3 days in the absence of grid power. So it's a very clear application of vehicle to grid in a real life situation. The ideal situation, if somebody like all of us are familiar, and a very ideal situation is you have a farmhouse, you charge your car in the day, and in the afternoon, Friday afternoon, today is Friday afternoon, go to your farmhouse, connect your car to your farm, and let the car power up the house in the night. In the morning, the sun comes along, you can power your house through the solar rooftop panels, and then also charge your car, and then you go home on Monday morning, realizing you have not consumed a single I would say iota of fossil fuel in those 2 days of staying in your farmhouse. I think that's an ideal situation. It's not something which is not doable. It is happening. It is happening even now. This is something which is a physical manifestation or a diagrammatic manifestation of what I just mentioned. I'll not dwell upon this much further. Same thing, vehicle to grid benefits, electricity during peak times. It is used to store and then release into the network to augment the power. So it's a very interesting thing. The entire vehicles, electric vehicles in the US today, if you combine the capacity of the batteries inside those vehicles, now this includes the Teslas and the other cars, is enough to power the country for the day. Yeah. So I think it just speaks a lot about how much of energy is stored and can be deployed when it is needed. I can go on and on the benefits, but this is the crux of what I just had to say. And I'll just talk about my company for the last slide. We want to be the best in the charging ecosystem, in anything to do with sustainable initiatives, whether it is renewable power, whether it is rooftops, whether it is home automation, whether it is energy service efficiency, as well as in electric vehicle charging, which is the subject for today. We want to be the largest. We are the largest by miles even today. The second one, we have got about 1,300 plus chargers public. The next person is less than half, much less than half. We want to spur the ecosystem. We really want to spur the ecosystem, and we want to invest ahead of time. That's how you spur the ecosystem. So that's it. That's it from my side. And I hope I've been able to do justice to talk about the EV ecosystem and not just vehicles in charging. And I leave the floor open to the questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Bangia. Nishant Bharatpaj, one of the participants in this summit, is saying he loved your examples. He's saying superb example of Ford F-150. Absolutely loved this session, Mr. Bangia. There is one question that is coming from Prince George. He's asking, what are your views on biodiesel?
Views on?
On biodiesel. While even the government and the Niti Aayog is very gung-ho about EV being the way to go for mobility, how about other options, biodiesel, hydrogen?
Yeah. So good. First of all, thanks to Nishant for the the glorious compliments. But yeah, this is a real life situation, and one day it'll happen in India as well. So thanks, Nishant. And to Prince, I must say that there are multiple options. Electric drivetrains is one of them. Biofuels is one of them. Hydrogen fuel cells is one of them. I think it's all a matter of being able to scale up and being able to deploy the right application for the right purpose. Example, biofuels is a very strong and very promising fuel for a country like ours, which is largely dependent on large part of our economy comes from agriculture. So this is a very nice transitory fuel to move into the electric domain. Just like there was a petrol, there's a diesel, there is a CNG, there is likely to be a biofuel. The efficacy of that fuel is being tested in India and not so much anywhere in the world. So I'm not in a best position to respond about the global examples, but it looks to be a fantastic transitory fuel till we move to full mobility. See, the advantage with electric mobility is very interesting. Electricity is universally present. I mean, you have to go to a petrol pump, which is 5 minutes, 10 minutes away, but electricity is there in my house. It is there in my parking lot. So I think the ability of converting to electric is going to be far sharper. Until then, biodiesel, biofuels hold a very strong promise. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Bangia, more questions coming in. One from Anshuman Pratyush, saying to my friend and past colleague Sandeep, I would like to hear your views on the dichotomy that bulk of power in India is still thermal based. So while you're going green on electricity, the electricity is largely still being produced by coal-powered thermal stations. How sustainable or green is that?
So that's So that's a very fair assessment of the situation, Anshuman. And there's just two ways to counter this agenda. Number one, there is even today, 65% of the fuel, 65% of the power is generated through coal, but 35% is clean. So if you want to make a beginning, please make a beginning with 35%. At least you are not 100% non-clean, which is petrol, diesel. Start with 35% clean. So that's one difference. Point number 2, and this is a very interesting and technical point. To move 1 kilometer in an electric car versus 1 kilometer in a IC engine car, the total power consumed, and I don't mean power in terms of the energy which is inside, the total power consumed is actually much lesser in an electric. And it's very simple. Electric motors, which is the main component of the car, is an extremely efficient device, as against a petrol or IC engine, which has got a lot of wastage. So what we call as wheel to well. It's a lot of wastage that happens in the production of IC engines, IC fuels, as well as delivering from the steering wheel to the tire on the road. So this is the second very clear reason. And finally, I think urban pollution is a very real cause. So for critics of the worst critics of electric vehicles say that all you are doing is shifting the pollution to the power plants from the cities. Okay, so do that. At least it is in the hinterland where the pollution can be much better managed, rather than in the thick inside the cities where the fumes just hit into you. So I think please make a beginning. Let's go with 35% cleaner fuel, and then let's take it forward. And we are moving it much faster.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bangia, for joining us for this summit. We really appreciate your efforts, given your health. Please take care, get good rest, and get back soon to your responsibilities. Thank you so much for joining us. Your session has been an exciting one. Got lots of questions, but this is all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.